Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Super Anime Bros podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rosario, joined by my brother Angelo, and today we're going to talk about something we love.
Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to talk about your number 9 pick.
Number 9 favorite anime of all time, which was a little bit of a curveball in our list, as it is a anime film rather than everything else has been a series.
We previously discussed that.
We did. Wow, that was a double.
But yeah, so we skipped my number 9, which is Your Lie in April, because we're going to talk about that once it's up on your list, which I don't remember what number it is for you.
I think it's like number 6.
Okay.
Yeah, we kind of explained that in the top 10, how we're going to go about this. But yeah, so we're on to my number 9. That's Princess Mononoke, or Mononoke Hime, depending on how you would say it. A Studio Ghibli film, my favorite of their films that I've seen thus far. Though I do acknowledge there's still many that I have to watch. But yeah, I think it's a really like powerful and inspiring movie. I love the core message, what you can glean from that. But it really it changed me. Like it was I adored it. So we'll talk a lot about it today and just some of my favorite things and anything that you can add from seeing it a couple times now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I truly think it's a masterpiece. I will not tell a lie there.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've done in the past, I'm going to start with the My Anime List summary of the show. And then I have a quick sentence how I would describe it, and then we'll kind of just get into it, talk characters, how they affect the plot, kind of what it means to us, and then we'll sum it all up from there. Ready
Sounds
to get rocking and rolling? All right. When an Emishi village is attacked by a fierce demon boar, the young Prince Ashitaka puts his life at stake to defend his tribe. With its dying breath. That was funny because it says beast next, so I said breath.
All right.
No, I said it. I had to call it out. With its dying breath, the beast curses the prince's arm, granting him demonic powers while gradually siphoning his life away. Instructed by the village elders to travel westward for a cure, Ashitaka travels to the Iron Town, where he finds himself embroiled in a fierce conflict. Lady Eboshi of the Iron Town, promoting constant deforestation, stands against Princess San and the sacred spirits of the forest, who are furious at the destruction brought by the humans. As the opposing forces of nature and mankind begin to clash in a desperate struggle for survival, Ashitaka attempts to seek harmony between the two, all while battling the latent demon inside of him. Princess Mononoke is a tale depicting the connection of technology and nature while showing the path to harmony that could be achieved by mutual acceptance. It's pretty beautiful there. I think that there is a deep environmental message to be told throughout this film, as I think is true of a good bit of Miyazaki's films. Not the 3 that I've seen, or not the other 2 that I've seen, but I think it is a recurring theme in a few of the other ones. So he certainly had a lot to say on that subject. As far as how I would describe it, I kind of in one sentence, a tale of perspectives, differing morals, forest gods, and a fight for what is right. I think, we often just go right into the characters, and we'll do that here, but of the characters we've talked about in many of our different deep dives or just in general on this podcast, I find Ashitaka to be one of the most compelling that I've seen. And I think, this will ring true throughout our talk here, but I really find it amazing that I am able to see this much depth and admire a character so much in, just 2 hours of runtime, rather than in a full series, which I think is really powerful and kind of speaks to how concentrated, I think the goodness of this film is. Ashitaka, is cursed, as it says there in that description. Facing sure death, which could cause anybody to do any number of things. Some people will accept it, some people will not. Some people would probably just live out their days doing whatever makes them happiest in the moment. Ashitaka decides that he's going to do what he can to lift this curse, and that means leaving his village, never to come back, as is like one of the rules. They kind of state like once he cuts his hair and leaves, he has to be gone forever.
Yeah, I guess it's just tradition.
Yeah,
I thought it was kind of dumb, but
yeah. But yeah, definitely just some sort of tradition with their way of life in his village. But yeah, I mean, he decides to give it all up and try to fight for a cure, and in doing so, he finds what caused the demon boar, former god of or spirit of the forest, to turn into a demon, and the hatred that brought that about. And he finds himself embroiled in this battle between what is essentially mankind and nature. And obviously, I mean, that's something that we're fighting in real life. So I think that this hits really close to home. I find that really, really compelling. But he's just like, obviously it's a fictional character, and I don't know that anybody could truly be so, I don't know, have such a strong sense of morality that he does, to do literally anything to find a peaceful solution in a otherwise really violent conflict. And then obviously there are people out there who I feel like probably embody that, but it really is like his whole state of being, which I think is really, really cool. But he battles this demon power in him this whole time. Finds his way to Iron Town, which is where the boar demon had been shot. Actually, they found a lead bullet, big giant bullet in it, which they had decided and kind of caused this whole thing. And he could go in here, to this town where the people who directly caused what has happened to him and what had almost happened to his village. And he could go in, guns a-blazing, angry as can be, but he doesn't. There are some moments where some anger and frustration is shown, but it never fully overtakes him. And something that was really cool as he was leaving his village was that the village elder asked him to go and see the world with eyes unclouded. I've most commonly quoted this as eyes unclouded with hate, but I think that was changed for the English dub to fit the lip flaps, which I thought was interesting because talking about a character we'll talk a little bit about later, Iboshi, who runs the Iron Town, after he gets there and is kind of talking to her, explaining his story about, you caused this through your hatred, through your weapons, through your violence. He says that he wants to see with eyes unclouded by hate, and then she responds, see with eyes unclouded. She doesn't say the full with hate. Not that it matters. I'm not going to hang on little things like that. Regardless, I think that is an incredibly powerful sentiment. We deal with so much in our lives that I think it's borderline impossible to not think about any of the, I'll say, negatives, and let that affect your way of thinking or the way you see the world. It's so easy to let things bring you down and change the way you think, change the way you see. So to go out and go all in on seeing through eyes unclouded by anything, I think is a really, really powerful sentiment. And I think that's like the best quote in the whole film, to be honest. It's a core tenet of his being as a character, and it's something that really, really stuck with me. Really, really cool stuff there. But as Ashitaka sees Irontown and what they're doing to, mine under the forest that's there to try to get more iron, obviously this is causing deforestation, which takes us to the other side of things here with the forest spirits, and then also San, who is a human girl raised by wolves, they I think once call her like Princess of Spirits or something, which would be Princess Mononoke, which is where we get our title. But as a second character to kind of talk about here, she's first introduced as trying to kill the Lady of Irontown, as they're like sworn enemies because she's trying to take over the forest, and Saw doesn't want her to, obviously. We're introduced to her, and she's kind of like wild, raised by wolves, obviously. But as we get to know her more and more, we really do see that she's human after all. And this comes to a head later in the movie where Ashitaka like says to her, "Yes, I am human, and you are too." After she's expressing her hatred for all mankind, which I think is understandable given how they're destroying the forest, destroying her home, destroying the home of many of the forest spirits and different animals that live there, and just kind of destroying life in general, in a way. Yeah, her hard exterior is definitely broken through by Ashitaka, and she is truly caring. Like, she does save him after he gets shot for her, which is pretty interesting scene there. That was pretty wild. As she like comes in Irontown to fight, and he breaks up the fight between San and Eboshi, takes her away, says like her life's in my hands. Like, this is kind of when he then engrosses himself a little bit in the forest side of things. They're like threatening to shoot him, and like somebody like makes a mistake and actually does, and then he like has to lift the gate, and they're like, no, you can't lift the gate, it's got to be like 20 people, and then he does it by himself because he's got the demon powers. But still, really cool scene. But yeah, I mean, I think that San eventually comes to somewhat understand the other side, as we'll talk about kind of at the end, with Ashitaka's whole main thing being that getting each other to understand. We'll kind of shift focus here to Eboshi, who is the leader of Irontown. Comes off initially definitely as the villain, but what I think is something so beautiful about this story, it's much more nuanced than that. And you know, there are clearly two sides to this, but neither of them is necessarily fully right or fully wrong. Both, you know, are doing some good and directly hurting each other, but you know, for the good of some people. But Iboshi's actually a pretty cool character. Like, for you know what she's doing with the forest, she's still like a very honorable person. I think that's pretty special. Like, some of the people that she has working in the Irontown, everybody working the like iron works, or I don't even know what they call it, like a mill maybe. Not really familiar.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called.
But everybody she has working there, she like purchased off of brothel contracts to kind of save them from a life of that, which
maybe
is
like a helm.
It could be a helm.
I don't know.
Helm's Deep. I don't know. But she purchased them all off of brothel contracts to save them from a life of that. And yes, it's hard labor, but they all like acknowledge that it's so much better than what they had to be doing before. So that's super cool. And then furthermore from that, we actually see she has a little garden, which I think is kind of funny given that she's destroying the forest. And then a small house where people who are kind of like designing her weapons. The main thing that Irontown's making is guns to fight off other people. Third party who is kind of the biggest bad in the film we'll talk about. But then also against forest spirits in the forest. But like people designing the weapons are all lepers. And she took them all in, gave them life, feeds them, clothes them, you know, gives them a place to be, takes care of them when nobody else in the whole world would. So obviously, like, she uses these people to accomplish her goals, but even then, it's really incredible to see a character give life and purpose to people who might not have that otherwise. So I think that's pretty cool, and you can kind of come to admire her for that, regardless of how initially bad she comes off, and even then, like, we'll still acknowledge that she is doing wrong. But even her, by the end, comes to somewhat understand the other side of things, and as we kind of talk about the ending, talk a little bit more about that. Moving on to the next and kind of that third party I alluded to. Jigo, I think his name was, is somebody Ashitaka meets early in his journey, and they end up meeting a few times, and this guy actually causes kind of like the climax of the film. And I think that he actually has like an army and another third party with like a lord of the land. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, like there's an emperor. I think he answers.
He serves. Yeah. But I think that this is the closest thing to a bad party in this film. His main goal is killing the god of the forest to gain favor with that emperor or lord or whatever. The lord, I guess, thinks that they can get immortal life with the head of the god. I don't know. But he kind of doesn't care about the conflict in either way. He just wants to do his own thing, and in turn, I mean, killing the god of the forest sounds like a pretty bad thing if you ask me. Do something pretty bad without caring for either side for his own good. So I think that selfishness, not necessarily something we see with a lot of the other characters, does certainly make him into what I think is probably the worst. Though we'll talk about the end a little bit. Moving on to some of the forest spirits. There are the wolves who raise San. Moro, the oldest, the mother of the wolves. A pretty interesting character. Certainly reasonable and truly does love San as her own daughter. There's parts where Ashitaka is with them and he's saying like you have to set her free, she's human, like which I mean what he's thinking is true, but Mara retorts that like the humans didn't love her, but she did, like that's her child. So I think that's pretty powerful stuff there, that she has raised and accepted this human. It's not that every single human ever is evil. They just need to come to understand each other. So she's a pretty interesting character, and does eventually come to understand Ashitaka by the end of the film, kind of allowing him to show his way to her daughter, to San. There's also the boars. There's obviously the one at the beginning of the film, the demon, the evil, turned evil boar. And then there's a second one later on in the film. I put down one note for them, and I just said war pigs. I think that kind of describes it pretty well.
Yeah, fair enough.
They're just there to fight against Irontown, and it does not go well for them at all. But they wanted to go out in like a blaze of glory.
Yeah, they knew that the whole time, that they were pretty much just
for sure
marching to their death.
For sure.
But they do it anyway.
Indeed. And then the next little forest spirit kind of thing I have here, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, the Kodama.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know, they're little guys.
Yeah, they're little dudes.
They look like little dudes, and they have heads that like are like bobbleheads.
Yeah.
They like shake.
They make
I don't
a really
know.
interesting sound.
They're just little guys.
Yeah, and they're like the children of the trees or something.
Yeah, don't they help? They help lead Ashitaka.
Yeah, they help guide us
through the
forest. Yeah.
So they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just goofy little dudes. When I was trying to look up their name, I found out it's like a guide to Miyazaki's Weird Little Guys was the article I found. So obviously another of his movies, he just has little guys.
Yeah.
But, they're awesome.
No, I do think they're pretty cool as well. And then the final spirit in the forest is the god of the forest, the main spirit of the forest, who has a really interesting design. 2 different forms, which is pretty cool. The first of which is kind of like a deer, but also kind of has the face of like a baboon, which is really odd. And then transforms at night into like a giant, like gooey looking monster thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they definitely have some unique designs.
Yeah. But I think that's really cool. And I think that this is actually a somewhat interesting character. Like the god of the forest has no lines or anything. But interestingly, I think after Ashitaka's shot, San like helps him, but also brings him to the center of the forest where this god kind of resides. And it's clear then that the god is the one who saves Ashitaka from death, does not lift the curse, but saves him from death from the bullet. But then later on in the film, when the other boar is being possessed after, kind of losing this war and just being blinded by hatred, is already blind also, which is interesting. They won't save them or really anybody else. Like the god of the forest clearly chooses what it's saving, who it's not. And I think it is said like the forest spirit brings life but also brings death, which I think was pretty interesting. Even this god of the forest is not an all good entity, which I think is interesting. Final people I want to talk about, some of the people of the town. Man, how do I say his name? I'm looking at it. Kuroku, that's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
Kuroku and Toki, I think, are the main two. Kuroku is kind of like a comedy presence, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Ashitaka actually saves him early on in the film before he gets to Iron Town, when there's an initial fight between the spirits and the Iron Town warriors, and he like kind of falls off a cliff and like breaks his arm. But Ashitaka saves him and carries him and another back to the village, and that's when he first arrives. But from that point on, like, there's a clear understanding between Kuroku and Ashitaka, and then also Toki, who's Kuroku's wife. Also kind of seems to be like the head honcho of the women running the ironworks.
Yeah, I'd say that.
So they're both interesting characters. I mean, they're part of this village, which is initially seen kind of as the bad side, but they're, just kind of good people, and you come to see that. That's actually going to be the case in one of my favorite shows we'll talk way later down the line. It's like...
Yeah, way later down the line.
No matter what these people are painted in, like, when you really get to know somebody and they're just a person trying their best with what they're doing, it's so interesting and can really deflect any hatred you may have. So yeah, I think they're both pretty cool as well. But just kind of circling back around story-wise, it does come to a final war, which is seemingly won by the humans. Now, I will say that Jigo kind of leads this with his army, who's much more well-trained than the Irontown army, it would seem. Irontown also gets attacked by this other third-party lord, like we were saying, which is not good. They're, the bad third party. But this happens while all the warriors are away fighting this final war, and it's just the women left, but they all are using the guns because Iboshi wanted the guns to be light enough for women to use, and obviously it works as they defend the village. And finally, Iboshi does kill the god of the forest, shoots its head off for Jigo, as it's said throughout the film that she like owes him, which is kind of one of the reasons I had put honorable. Like, she just is going to go along with this crazy dangerous task of killing the god of the forest because she owes this guy, for I think lending her his army previously with probably some fight with that lord, I would guess. So they shoot the head off of the forest spirit, which is a pretty crazy scene. I don't think the first time I watched I thought it was going to go all the way that way. So that happens in the climactic moment, and everything starts to turn bad. Forest starts dying, all these things. San is angry with Ashitaka because he doesn't like fully take one side, and she's like, you're on the side of the people and all of that, and he deflects that perfectly, as he is seen with his eyes unclouded, which I think is also a pretty cool moment. And then they're going to fight to kind of save this forest spirit, save the forest. Eventually, as things are getting destroyed, Irontown is destroyed. Everybody's saved because Ashitaka lets them know they need to leave. But the town is destroyed. The whole forest around the area is wiped out. And it looks like our main characters might not make it. I mean, obviously they will. It's a Ghibli movie, and I would imagine they all have pretty good endings. But they're fighting with Jigo for the head of the god, and eventually they do get it and return it to the god. And at least I thought, okay, all is going to go back to normal, all is going to be right, and that was not the case. So the spirit gets its head back and then just kind of falls over and dies. Actually, I think that's when Irontown's destroyed. I think it falls on Irontown.
Yeah, I think so.
But then, very gradually, one of the final scenes in the movie, all the forest and the grass and flowers, everything that had died, starts to grow back, and flowers and all grow throughout Irontown, which is pretty cool. It's all destroyed. I think Kuroku's the one who says a line along the lines of, "I didn't know the god of the forest made the flowers grow," or something like that, which I thought was interesting. Makes it evident that neither of these sides had any sort of understanding of each other. As far as the people of the town go, I can't blame them at all. They're just kind of fighting for a cause, fighting for this woman that helped kind of save them from other fates. And obviously for the forest spirits, they don't want the forest to be destroyed, so they're going to fight for that. But I think it's a pretty cool ending in that one side doesn't clearly come out victorious, as I think much of the film is gray in who we're rooting for, and who's got the upper hand at any moment, and how it's all going to end. I think it's kind of cool that it all somewhat ends in a compromise, I'll say. And I think that kind of goes back to Ashitaka as the catalyst of this, always staying level-headed, challenging everybody's preconceptions with their thoughts of the other side of the conflict, and really the whole time just working to bring both sides to an understanding, bring them both to peace. Not everybody's going to be happy. You're going to have to compromise. But I think that truly is a reality of life, and especially to find a peaceful solution in conflict, that just has to be the case. No one side can fully win. I don't think that's a peace that can last. So I really, really enjoy this film. I think the story is beautiful. I think the characters are great, Ashitaka in particular. Every time I go back to it, I love it more and more. One thing I remember thinking after I watched it the first time, and shout out to Michael for making me watch this. Thanks, dude, if you made it this far. But one thing I remember thinking was how much Ashitaka kind of reminded me of Luke Skywalker, especially a Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. Just so sure of himself and doing the right thing, never falling victim to the hate that might be growing inside him, no matter how many bad things are happening around him. I think it was kind of a cool parallel I thought up there, which I've actually now heard in some other essays of this film that other people do think that as well. So I think that's actually pretty cool. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. But animation, this film's absolutely gorgeous. Ghibli does an amazing job as always. It really is beautiful. The score's excellent. Joe Hisashi kills it as always. The main theme of the movie, I could listen to all day, every day, I think on repeat. It's so beautiful. Thinking of the first scene that it really plays in, Ashitaka's prancing through a field on his red elk, Yakul, who I didn't mention at all. He's a good character.
He's a great character.
But just so beautiful. Like moments like that just live on in my mind. It's just gorgeous. Really, I think is the height of this medium as a whole. Being able to bring scenes like that to life. Really, really incredible stuff. I love it. I don't know what more I can say than that. I think that in a lot of other anime, I won't talk this much about meaning behind it, what it means to me, the lesson that's trying to be told. I think this show in particular, and a few of the other ones that are high up on my list, but not many of them are so compelling and meaningful. This really, really is a special story. So I'm happy I was exposed to it. Happy to be able to talk about it. It really is great stuff, and I highly recommend anybody to go out and watch it. I think all the Ghibli movies are on HBO Max. We were lucky enough to go see this in the movie theater for Ghibli Fest. They're replaying a lot of the films. We actually got to see this in Howl's Moving Castle, which if we saw it before we made our lists, I think that definitely would have featured on my list as well.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I love this one. I think I said everything I need to. You have anything you want to add, brother?
I mean, you really covered everything. I think for me, I mean, Ashitaka, I think he's got to be my favorite character. I mean, he's awesome, but I really like Deboshi.
Yeah.
I don't really see her as a villain.
Yeah.
I get it, like, what she's doing is wrong to the forest, but she really has made such a wonderful community in Irontown of really great people, and because of that, they all have good lives.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, she's not all good.
No,
But,
I
you
mean,
know.
I don't really know that any character in this is, other than probably Ashitaka.
Yeah, but I think she's very compelling, even if you consider her as a villain, because you can completely understand.
For sure, I mean,
Understand
we've talked
her.
about before, the best
And
kinds of villains are that.
yeah, and I don't really think she understands what she's like doing to the forest.
No, I would agree.
So I think once the ending happens, they'll have a good understanding of each other, and hopefully she can rebuild Irontown with everybody and not destroy the forest in the process.
Yeah, I mean, she does say at the end that they'll rebuild a better town. One that's not hopefully going to be as destructive, and they can kind of live in harmony.
Yeah, so there's not like a definite winner loser in the ending. I think hopefully everybody will be winners someday.
Yeah.
Because once they can learn to understand each other, see each other's perspective, I think they really can have peace, which is kind of beautiful.
I agree. No, I think this tells one heck of a story. And yeah, I think we can all learn a lot from it in real life, and just coming to understand things with other people.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot to take away, even deeper than just like the environmental stuff. It's just the idea of like being able to see things from other people's perspective, and like you said, and like they say in the movie, being able to see things with eyes unclouded. Like, I feel like as people, we carry so many like preconceived notions, biases, hate that really, make things worse. Make things a lot worse.
Yeah, for sure. They hold us back.
Yeah, I think it'd be wonderful to be able to see with eyes unclouded, but it's not easy.
No, it is not. Ashitaka makes it look very easy.
Yeah, I think that just shows like his mental fortitude and his determination there.
Without a doubt.
He can do that.
Without a doubt. Well, I think that's all we have for this one. Kind of keep it brief relative to a lot of the other ones. But obviously we're talking about a 2-hour film here versus, multiple season.
Yeah,
anime.
some shows that are 1,000 episodes.
I don't know if we're gonna ever talk about one like that.
Maybe, but yeah. So
who's to say?
I
Thank
think
you for your thoughts, though.
It's a wonderful movie. I know it's definitely ranked higher on your. Well, it's not even on my list. It would have. It definitely would have had a place on my top 50 had I considered movies.
Good to hear.
I really did like it. I took a lot away from it too. So
that's great.
Glad we got the opportunity to talk about it.
Heck yeah, brother. Well, we will be coming back at you next week. I think we decided we're going to take another break from deep dives.
I think we're going to try some different stuff just to not hit you with deep dive after deep dive. We don't want to bore you guys. Just have some like conversation in the middle there.
Yeah.
So that should be a lot of fun.
I think that sounds good to me, my brother. That sounds good to me. Well, anybody who listened to me ramble for all that time, truly thank you. I doubt that will be anybody, but we shall see.
No, well, I usually listen to every episode, so
good.
at least I'll.
I appreciate
you're welcome.
It. Maybe you'll learn something. Then I thank you. I thank you greatly. If you ever zoned out at all tonight, you can, re-listen to my beautiful words.
There you go.
All right. Well, that's all we have this week. We will be coming back at you next week with some more. Thank you
guys.
as always for listening. Peace.